Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Brian E. Roach.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Brian E. Roach, and as you can see, I'm in 99 mode today, and that is in honor of the guest that we have joining us for today's podcast. Joe is being replaced, at least momentarily, with a Steelers great, a guy who played linebacker for the Steelers, and is doing some other things now, and just one of my all-time favorites to wear the jersey, Levon Kirkland. Levon, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Yep. So we're going to kind of bounce around a little bit, but of course the topic of the moment is the game that takes place this Sunday. And just so the NFL doesn't yell at me, I'm not going to call it what it's called. They get antsy about that. But the big game. And I'll give you my take on this big game is that I'm going hiking.
You're going hiking?
I'm going hiking because I hate Tom Brady. I hate him.
Right. Yeah. A lot of Steelers fans don't appreciate Tom Brady at all.
No, we don't. We definitely don't. But he started off with a mark against him from my standpoint because he went to Michigan. So and being an Ohio State guy, I just can't.
Wow. Even though you guys have probably beat them like 15 out of the last 16 times, you still have a grudge for Tom Brady playing in Michigan for
a little
bit of time he played.
It's ingrained. Now, and look, I know you went to Clemson, so right. That's getting close after last year, but we got our revenge this year, so I'm okay.
I can understand that. Yeah, I can understand that. I thought Ohio State played very well. I thought that Dabo Swinney gave them some motivation.
Oh, yeah.
And when you do that, you just put fuel in the fire. You can't really do that all the time. So, yeah, I thought Ohio State played well. Really did.
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody was beating Alabama this year, though. So,
yeah, I don't think anybody was going to beat them either.
So, but when we look at this game, so the Super Bowl as it is now, I'll get yelled at, but oh well. We've got Tom Brady now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looking a little funky in that uniform, but we also have two ex-Steelers, one of whom may not be available in Antonio Brown, and the other one who may be available but still may never see the field in Le'Veon Bell. Mm-hmm. I guess from your perspective, these guys left, for various reasons. We all know the Antonio Brown saga, and how things went off the rails in a spectacular way. And we also know that Le'Veon decided, he was going to hold out and try and make bank and did what he needed to do. And I didn't think any Steelers fans really held that against him. The Antonio Brown situation a little different, but
right.
The truth is, though, that they both took a I can't say that word. You'll find out. I can't say a lot of words. I'm bad at it.
It's okay.
Circuitous route to get to the big game. But really, both of them are kind of non-factors for the teams that they're playing for right now.
Yeah, as a player, you always want to be a factor in that big game, as you call it. You just do. And, you're appreciative of getting there, and sometimes you have to play your role, and these guys are definitely playing their role. But when I played in the Super Bowl, you like to be a big part of it. I know those guys would love to be a big part of it, but at this point in time in their career, they're just not, and it's okay. At least they're there, and they have an opportunity. Their teams have an opportunity to win the game, so one of those guys are going to leave pretty happy in the Super Bowl champ. So
yep.
that's a positive thing. It really is. As blessed as my career was, I still would have loved to have won that Super Bowl championship. So, yeah, when you talk about that game, there's going to be a lot of nerves, even if you don't play, because you're just you're just hoping at the end the confetti is on your side.
So when you look at it from your perspective, I don't know how much you followed both these two teams. You've got essentially the young and upcoming quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. You've got a guy who's the grizzled as grizzled as they get of veteran quarterbacks in Tom Brady. And at least watch. I mean, I always keep the game on when Brady's playing just so I can root for him to lose. But it's he's had an up and down season. He's looked really good, and he has had games where he looked 40-something years old.
Right.
Obviously, the spotlight tends to bring out the best in guys. But when you look at this game, how do you see it unfolding?
Wow. Well, I hope it's a really good game, to be honest with you. I am rooting for Tampa Bay because I will actually coach for Bruce, and I would just like to see those guys win. Todd, Larry Foote, they got some guys on that team that I really wish well. So
Yep.
I would like for them to win, and let's get that out of there. So if you look at the game from the football standpoint of it, Kansas City has a offense that's just, for lack of a better word, explosive. They can score on any possession. They're like, in a lot of ways, they're like the Golden State Warriors. And if you're the other team, the fear factor is that they can score. The question is, can you score? And can you keep up? And can you wear them down? And I think that's the problem that most teams that are facing a Kansas City Chiefs team is, can they really keep up? And a lot of times also, as an offensive coordinator on the other side, you have to be careful because they're going at a certain pace and you kind of want to go at that certain pace too. And you want to score early, quickly, and often as much as they do. So I see this game as being I think it's going to be a good one. I feel that Tampa Bay does have the formula to stop Kansas City with their front four and the pressure they can bring, especially from the outside backer perspective. So when you look at that could cause Mahomes and that offense a whole lot of trouble. But if they don't get back there, they don't really get some pressure, they're going to be in trouble. But I do like Tampa Bay's defense. I like Todd Bowles and the scheme he runs and how he mixes it up pretty well. And I think he will cause Patrick some trouble. But if they get behind, it's going to be trouble for Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I see the game being closer than maybe some other people do, and I see it being like maybe a field goal game. I think it's going to be that type of game. And I think you have to keep Tom, they play action pass a whole bunch because they need to. They're very capable of scoring as well. So I think if they could just kind of stay even with Kansas City, they have an opportunity in the fourth quarter to pull off an upset. But I feel like it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, it certainly has all of the makings of one. I am, the standby statement is always, defense wins, right? Defense wins championships. That's what they always say. And when I look at these,
I don't know these days.
Yeah, I know it's so hard. We keep saying it every week. How are these defenders supposed to do their jobs with the way the rules are stacked against them? But I do look at these two guys, and I do think Tampa probably has a better defense than Kansas City does. I think they're more aggressive. I think they're more big K capable. And I think Kansas City has shown throughout the season that they have sometimes not been as explosive as they have been in the past. Nearly losing both games to the Raiders, losing one of the two and almost losing the second one. And really having some very close games throughout the season. So I kind of agree with you. I think this can be a very close game, a field goal or even less, and might end up being one of those really exciting type of Super Bowls that don't seem to always happen in this game. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, they both have weapons. You got Tyreek Hill on one side, you got Mike Evans, as well as everybody else that's in the receiving core on Tampa Bay. Mahomes is a unique quarterback, but so is Tom Brady at this point, and it'll be interesting to see. I'm still not sure I'm watching, but it'll be interesting if I do. I don't know. I'll be out in the woods hiking, and it'll be getting close, and I'll come back and watch.
You're not going to even watch for the commercials.
On
a halftime show, you're not going to watch just because of those things.
I don't know exactly. Is it the Weeknd that's performing in the halftime show? It's the Weeknd. He had that one song. I don't understand that song. I can't feel my face.
Blinded Light. It's the song he had.
Yeah.
Starboy.
Yeah. My wife loves him. My wife loves it. Thinks that she really likes that I Can't Feel My Face song, but I don't understand that song. And
you know what, Brian? It's not for you to understand.
I know. It's not my song. That's like, I don't remember. Is there anybody else? I forget who else is. They usually have more than one act.
Right. I really don't know. I just heard that he's going to be there, and that's going to be interesting to see.
Yep.
How he does.
It's just going to be an interesting Super Bowl with this kind of a season, this crazy season that we had.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with it at all. He's going to be at the game, right? They're going to perform at the game, not virtual.
Yeah, I imagine he will be at the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So the commercials are always fun, but I can see those the next day. That's always fun. It just makes me, if Tom Brady, if they win, I agree with you. Actually, I have to try and learn your mantra that you just told me. I have to remember all of the ex-Steeler connections that are there, and just be happy for them and let go. I have to do the Yoda thing and let go of my anger and my dislike of Tom Brady and not care if he wins again.
That seems to be an issue with you, and I would say you probably need a little bit of counseling with it.
I have a Tom Brady issue.
I'm not a licensed counselor, so I don't know if I can really help you at all. But I can understand but I get it though. When you got your heart and your emotions with a team, it's kind of hard to root for the happiness of someone else. Like you have an ex-girlfriend or an ex-wife, and it's a bitter divorce, man, and she's on Facebook showing her new husband, and they just seem to be. They got some really good highlights of their lives. It's kind of tough to root for them, but you have to get over it. So,
yeah.
Hey, you do have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you do have Ohio State. Those are really good teams, and they're going to make you happy again by being on top. You just
absolutely,
yeah. And this is probably going to be Tom Brady's last Super Bowl. So.
I'm crossing fingers and toes and everything. I'll be happy when he leaves. And as I said to people, I don't really wish Tom Brady any ill will. I just don't want him to win anymore. No, I'm not. I'm not positive of that.
You just don't want him to win. You don't mind, as a person, you want him to prosper.
Yes.
But as a football player,
as a player, that's it. Yeah. It's all about on the field. Outside of the field, he can go do and be happy and have a great life, and I hope he does. I just don't want him to win.
I can dig it. I understand.
All right. So, that's that part of it. But, you did talk about being in the Super Bowl. And I have there's a phrase I use, he who shall not be named. And he who shall not be named is a gentleman who was in that Super Bowl with you.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And, he played the same position this guy plays at quarterback. So I don't name him. Because it's not just that Super Bowl that I blame him for. See, I do have anger issues. I have anger issues. I hold grudges.
Yeah, you do hold grudges.
And I have a grudge against him. It's the AFC Championship. I think it was the championship the year before that also. And Joe and I have talked about this many times. You got guys like Rod Woodson, yourself, Greg Lloyd, people who played on that defense that deserved that championship, and it kind of slipped away. What was it from not to bring up a painful subject, but how did you guys handle the roller coaster of that game? Because I was actually watching it with a Cowboys fan, and he was very unhappy, at least until late in the game.
Right. Yeah. Well, as I said before, you don't really realize until it's all over with and your career's over with, and you don't have an opportunity to capture that Super Bowl championship, and you don't really realize how important it is to the history and your legacy. I feel that we were just brand new. It was a fight to just get to the Super Bowl for us, and I think that we had an opportunity to do something really special. We came back from a season that was 3-4 from the start. We won about 8 or 9 games in a row. Mm-hmm. Had an opportunity to be in the Super Bowl and really upset the Dallas Cowboys. And I really felt in that game that we had them. We had them on the ropes pretty much that second half. I thought the defense really stepped up, and we really got the pace of what they were doing. And they really couldn't do a whole lot against us. And, it's just one of those opportunities that slipped by, because if he throws the ball inside, he has a guy that's going to hit his head on the goalpost. So it's just missed opportunities. And I don't particularly want to blame Neil for it. I know fans really do. And I know that you do. But those 2 interceptions were costly. But there were some things on defense that, we could have done better. I mean, we could have stopped them, but we ended up not stopping them. And, that was on us as well. Those 2 turnovers were huge, though. They were really huge. I'm not, underestimating them at any way. But, that last one was, I think the last one was it really hurt because you felt the momentum on our side the whole time. We stopped them on defense. We had a chance. Our offense is moving the ball against these guys. And you felt like, I felt like being on the sideline, this was it. This is where we're going to come back. We're going to win this game. And that interception just really took the air out of us. And
yeah.
We wouldn't really prepare to handle it. And that's what happens when you don't, when you haven't been in that spot enough. Or you don't emphasize, the game is not over until it's over. And, I was proud of that team because honestly, I thought the team the year before was a little bit better. Like, I thought we were talented. I thought we were, we were steamrolling the league that year. And I felt like that team was the team. But I think we learned from that game to go to the AFC Championship the next year about winning that game. And I think if we could have stayed together for a little longer, we would have won it eventually. Because it just it was a progression with us. We lost that we lost the Buffalo game my first year. Then we go to Kansas City and we're winning the game and Joe Montana beats us at the end. Then we go to the divisional, we killed Cleveland, we beat them 3 years in a row. We slept on San Diego a little bit. We kept it close enough where they really just made some big plays to beat us. The long, 2 long passes, really 2 plays beat us that game. And then we were at the 3-yard line and we couldn't make it in. So yep. It was just a progression. Then the next year, we go through our 3 and 4. We end up winning a lot of games and we go to the Super Bowl and we're playing against a great team. And we just couldn't get over the top. I mean, and then that's when the team kind of split up a little bit. And it was just hard to make. But I really feel that the reason why I love that team is because we kind of brought that magic back to Pittsburgh. And although we didn't
absolutely,
well, we brought winning back to Pittsburgh. We brought back the tough-minded defense with a lot of really good players on that defense. I was lucky and fortunate to be a part of that defense. Learned a whole lot from guys like Greg Lloyd, Rod Woodson, and the late, great Kevin Green. Mm-hmm. So it was tough losing that Super Bowl. And every guy who's played in the Super Bowl and has been on the wrong end of it would tell you that it's really tough losing it, and you don't appreciate the moment. And you got to appreciate the moment because you never know if it's going to happen again. It's just that one opportunity you just got to make. You got to make it. You got to make sure that you take care of it and make sure you come out the winner because you're going to be 50-something years old and man, just reliving that time that you could have done something better. My experience was a great experience. I think for me individually as a player, I had a pretty good game. And I think it kind of maybe opened the doors for the Pro Bowl for me. But, man, I would have loved to have won that game and be part of a Super Bowl champion.
Absolutely. Speaking of you as a player, I'm a guy, I've been a defensive fan my whole life, right? So starting back, from Joe Green's day and even before, because I was a fan back in the 60s when I was little. Right. It was interesting to me because at your size when you were playing, there are very few other linebackers that were similar that I could compare you to. You were a unique individual at the weight you played at and at the speed you still played at. It was insane. And I remember watching as you advanced through, being a starter and playing, just going, wow. And I don't know whether you ever really got the nickname Captain Kirk, but I know I called you Captain Kirk all the time. I was like, that's Captain Kirk right there. And as I was watching as a fan, this is my fanboy moment now. There's memories of you just blowing guys up at speeds that just didn't seem feasible for you to achieve. When you think of the way the game has changed, are we going to see that kind of an outside kind of a linebacker guy, a guy who's playing, middle coverage kind of a backer? Are we going to see that kind of a player anymore?
I know most people would say most likely no. I feel that you could see a player like that again. Because you have to be, I think a lot of times you're taking speed and cover skills, but you're taking away a guy who can totally stop and run, no matter what the situation it could be. He doesn't have, I was the kind of guy that didn't have to have a lot of other guys in the box with me to be able to stop and run. So I think maybe a guy like that would come along, probably not as big as I am, but you probably will have a guy that's as versatile. And I think that was probably the misconception of a lot of people when they thought of me as a football player. They thought of me only as a run stopper and kind of like a thug player. But if you really look at it, I was very capable of doing multiple things.
Yeah.
And I would dare say that how many linebackers you actually see cover a guy down the field and actually make an interception. And that's what I could do more so than any other linebacker I felt that was out there, whether it was a Ray Lewis or anybody else out there. I can actually cover guys, run stride for stride with them, and intercept the ball. And it wasn't always a lot of tip passes or anything like that. I mean, I was able to catch the ball in the zone. I was able to drop in the zone. I could really cover better than a lot of people thought. Except for my coaches, they all knew what I could do as a guy who dropped back in coverage. I mean, honestly, I love 7-on-7 more than anything. Especially, just dropping into, cover 3, which we played a whole lot. Mm-hmm. I really took pride in covering tight ends, and a lot of times, you had a guy like myself that was running 20 or 30 yards down the field, covering the guy, then had to come back, set the huddle, and get ready for the next play. So a lot of plays, I felt like a DB. I was running. You wouldn't imagine the times that I had to run downfield on guys. And I contribute that to I was a much better athlete than I looked. And I would tell young people out there today the reason why is because I played multiple sports in high school.
Yeah.
And I felt like that gave me the ability and provided me stimulus that I could adjust to situations that most linebackers my size couldn't. Because in college, I never played inside backer. I played outside and I did defensive end.
Yeah.
So I was able to rush the passer as well. So yeah, in a lot of ways, as I look back on it, I felt like I was one of the more unique guys. But most people in the media, only thing they can really see is big. That's all they can really see. But I think for the Pittsburgh Steelers fans, who got to see me every week, I kind of grew into their spotlight, and they were just like, "Man, this guy actually is." With all the guys we have. With the Greg Lloyds, with Kevin Green, the Chad Browns, I probably wasn't the guy that was going to be the marketable guy. But I think in fans and pure football, people who are pure football fans, they saw it.
Oh, absolutely.
They saw like, man, this guy really plays very well, very consistent at all times, and he can make plays. So, yeah, I look back on it. I would probably be a guy that when they look back on it, they would say like, man, you know what? Actually, Levon, he was a heck of a player. He really was. This point in time, I just didn't have the flair that maybe other guys had. But I think for the real fans, they could see it.
Yeah, I find, at least in my opinion, the inside backing position, you got guys like yourself, Vince Williams, James Ferrier, a lot of guys, Larry Foote, who you mentioned before, a lot of guys who played inside, they don't get the same level of notoriety as an outside linebacker in Pittsburgh, right? Because you're not doing the flash, the splash, you're not, causing the strip sacks and getting in that stuff. Right. Nonetheless, as I was telling you on the linebacker helmet that I had you sign, you, in my mind, absolutely deserve to be on that helmet.
Right. Yeah.
Of the hierarchy of great linebackers in the Steelers' history, you definitely are one of them. It was a joy to watch you play, especially the way that you were able to do so. And as you said, covering guys out of the backfield, you could rush if you needed to. But just watching, because I weighed about 359 when I met you in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And now I'm down to 2 something. And I could never, at 359, I couldn't move 2 miles an hour. I was a turtle. So when I seen a guy that was, not that you were that big, but the guy that was, 300 pound close or plus, move that fast, man, that was great. That was awesome.
Yeah, a lot of times when I was, we were warming up, I would always have guys come up to me and they would always say, man, it's amazing someone your size can move the way you are. It's not even fair that you're playing inside linebacker. And I always kind of chuckle with that because, once I was out there playing, my weight did not matter.
Right.
It didn't. I heard about it a whole lot, but that was out of my mind, and I was ready to play football. And, only thing people could really say is, man, he's big, but he can play. That's like somebody's being really short, like a Muzzy Bowles, and they're just like, maybe he's short, but man, this guy can really play the game. So I feel like I have the respect of the peers that I play with. Maybe some of the younger guys don't know who I am, but the guys who played in that era, they definitely understood the impact that I brought to the game each and every game. And the one thing I do like about myself was I was very consistent.
Yeah.
I pretty much had really rock solid games all the time. And I really felt like I add a lot of value to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And playing under the shadows of guys like Jack Lambert and those guys, I felt like I really handled that mantle pretty well. Maybe not like a Jack Lambert, but I was like right under him. and then you see a guy like James Ferrier, Earl Holmes, guys held it down.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I brought a legacy back that wasn't there for a while in the 80s. So, as I look back on my career, I just look back on those teams. I was very fortunate, very blessed to have worked with the guys I worked with and the coaching staff that I worked with also, and to have a guy like Bill Cowher who was understanding and saw the potential in me. And I mean that, and especially they took a chance on me because I never played the position before. And to now, from just being a rush guy and a guy who stops to sleep, now you got to recognize everything. And I think I have to give myself a lot of credit for being able to make that adjustment.
Yeah.
And the only way I'd be able to make that adjustment because playing multiple sports. So kids out there, I know we're into this training of the one sport, but play multiple sports. It will help you, I think, even more so than just you're going to train all year in football.
Absolutely. Variety is the spice, as they say, and I think that
Right.
you do different things and it trains you different ways, and it makes your body adaptable.
It really does.
And I think it's good. So to kind of close things out, I'm gonna have you put on your Steelers thinking cap again and look at the team as it stands right now.
Right.
It's a team that started 11-0 and got a lot of bad talking for an 11-0 team. People were, this is the worst 11-0 team that's ever existed in football history, all kinds of stuff like that. And, unfortunately, in this crazy COVID season, things kind of got a little wackadoo with that Ravens game, and the wheels sort of, to a certain extent, fell off. What did you see when you looked at the Steelers, if you followed them this year, and how they did? And what do you think ultimately went wrong with their season?
Well, this is contrary to popular belief. I still feel like you have to be able to run the ball in some type of capacity. So people just started catching up with the Pittsburgh Steelers because they realized they can't really run the ball. Ben, in a lot of ways, is an outlier with the way he plays. When I say that, I mean that he can extend plays, and that has been his whole rep. He can throw it deep. He can extend plays. He's a big-time player. He was limited in what he could possibly do. He was different, so it took teams a little bit of time to catch up because he was throwing more stuff timing. He was throwing more stuff. He was getting rid of the ball quickly, and it was working until Cincinnati really said, like, okay, we're going to really make these receivers work. And it just threw off the game. And, when they losing guys on defense like Bud Dupree and Devin Bush, it's tough. I mean, you always want to have depth, but it's nothing like the starter. It's nothing like the starter. He's a starter for a reason. And when you have to, depth comes in when you need somebody to go in there for a few plays or go in there for like a half or maybe even a game. But when you start talking about multiple games, that's when the starter not being in there catches up to people. And that's what people don't get. Like they think, oh, we got a bunch of depth. Man, I'm telling you, depth depth is only for spot time.
Right.
Go in there for a few plays, don't hurt the team, even make a play, but more importantly, don't hurt the team. But when you have to put your depth in there, your second string guys, it can hurt you at the very end. And that's what it did with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It kind of hurt them at the very end. And that's kind of how I saw it. If they would have had a running game that was consistent, I think it would have been fine because it would have helped Ben out a whole lot. Now you're talking about play action pass. People weren't falling for the play action pass. After a while, they're just like, they can't run the ball. And even if they do run the ball, so what? They can't consistently hurt you running the ball. And the beauty about having a great running game is that it wears defenses down. It is physical. It takes a lot of energy to get those big guys off you all game long. And after a while, the running back starts finding holes. He starts running stronger and stronger, and it really hurts. When a team passes the ball a lot, it's not as bad. It's not as bad on a physical and mental standpoint. It's not as bad. So I look. The only thing I thought the Steelers were missing was they didn't have that consistent running game. And I think that's what they need to look for coming up in this draft is a guy who can absolutely tote the mail when they need for him to tote the mail.
I spent a lot of time, even early in the season, saying part of the reason that they're playing the way they're playing is that I believe that the offensive line simply had pushed back a little bit. They had relapsed, so to speak. This had been a great offensive line for many years, but I thought Alejandro Villanueva, I thought, was having a down year. It looked like Pouncey was maybe not up to snuff. David DeCastro looked like maybe he was battling injuries one way or the other. You lose your starting right tackle in Zach Banner, and now you've got a Corafor coming in. Not that, again, they were battling neck and neck to be it, but I put a lot of that on whether or not they were trying to cover for weaknesses in the offensive line, and that because that's how it looked to me. It didn't look like they could get pushed. It didn't look like they were moving guys in front of them to help facilitate that run game. And once they really started trying to run the ball and found out that they just flat out couldn't, they would just give up. So the question really becomes: this is that what came first, the chicken or the egg? What's more important for them in the initial part of this draft, a back or an O lineman?
Yeah, this is what I say. If there's a dynamic back at the time you're picking, I would go with a dynamic back. I think you can always build an offensive line. And there's not going to be an offensive line that's just going to make a big difference. I don't think.
Okay.
And then, you maybe can get an offensive lineman later, and you can get some guys that are good, of course. But I think if you can hit on a fantastic running back, you go with that guy. Because sometimes fantastic running backs can overcome shoddy blocking. So, and I think the guy that I like at that slot that I think would be available for the Pittsburgh Steelers is the guy that plays at Clemson, is Travis Etienne. I think he would fit very well with any team, but with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I definitely think he would fit because this guy runs the ball tougher than you think he does. And he is a home run hitter. He is. He gets on that second level, and it's goodbye. So maybe a guy like that will be available because I just don't think Connor and the backs they got, they're just backs. And I mean, no disrespect, but they're just backs. They're a guy that, are usually if you're talking about a 1-2 punch, they're number 2.
Right.
And that's what they are. And I think you need somebody who's dynamic back there that can give the defenses a little bit of a pause. And that's when you can do your play action passes. And that's where a quarterback like Ben, who's up in age, you don't have to rely on his arm all day long. Then that's when you can get people deep. And you can hit some, you can hit some other passes as well. But I think you need a running back in there that can make something happen.
All right. And I know that the other name that keeps popping up is the guy from Alabama, Najee Harris. One of our contributors, Zach Meckler, is a big Clemson fan, so I know he'll be thrilled to hear that you think Travis Etienne is the guy.
Right.
But beyond that, so the other big question mark that's going on around the Steelers right now is does Ben come back or does Ben not come back? And if he does come back, how do you handle the $41 million cap hit that he brings with him? Ben, of course, has said that it's not about his salary for him. He will do whatever it takes. He wants to come back. He wants to play another year. I will say I don't want the last image we have of Ben Roethlisberger to be the one where he's sitting with Pouncey on that bench at the side of the game after losing. But in today's NFL, how do they make that work?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not really quite sure how you make that work. You hope Ben comes back, he's a little bit better than ever. I think the mistake that most teams make, and I can understand the mistake, is when you get that great quarterback, you want to hold on to him for life. Teams just don't part with quarterbacks. They just don't. Even though at every other position, when you're not as good, they're always thinking about how can we move this guy? Who
Right.
are we going to bring in? I think in a quarterback situation is that I don't know if a lot of teams really want to part with the guy. I tell people all the time, Bill Belichick wanted to get rid of Tom Brady way earlier than he got rid of. He really
Sure did seem like it, yeah.
He wanted to get rid of him because he knew that they just stopped, hey, thank you for all the winning, but Belichick he wasn't emotionally attached. Where I think a lot of times most teams, when they have that great quarterback, they get emotionally attached. Where they don't do that for other positions, but for the quarterback, they do that. And I can understand in a lot of ways because there's just not a lot of great quarterbacks that come down the pipeline. They're just not. And they don't have time to develop quarterbacks. So
Right.
Even if a guy is like a Josh Allen, after Josh Allen would have been in other places, they would have gotten rid of him. They'd be like, okay, he's garbage. He's trash. Because teams are just so impatient with the position. Remember at one point in time, you draft a quarterback and he didn't play for 3 or 4 years. But then when he played, he was a pretty good guy, kind of like the Green Bay with the Aaron Rodgers experiment. But teams just don't feel like they have that time. They don't have that opportunity. You got to win now. If you don't win now, you're going to be gone. So I think with Ben Roethlisberger kind of situation is tough because you're talking about an all-time great who still wants to play, and you don't really have a backup for him. I don't think Mason Rudolph is a bad quarterback at all. I don't, but people are just so impatient with him.
Right.
And they just like, oh, he's no good. But I think in a quarterback situation, it takes a little while to get it. I don't think Mason Rudolph is a bad quarterback, but the fans will rip them apart if they said, you know what, we're gonna start Mason over Ben. The fans wouldn't buy it. It's not a good PR move whatsoever. So right. I think it's always a tough situation when you have a great quarterback, what to do with that great quarterback until what to do with that great quarterback when he's no longer great anymore.
Right.
And I just don't think Ben is great. I just think that he's just played a lot. And I think it just wore him down. And that's when you need a running game to kind of help him out a little bit. And the defense was there. The defense played better than it's played in quite a long time.
Yeah.
So you got a defense that's pretty good. I think you just need maybe somebody. If you're going to keep Ben, you're going to need somebody to complement Ben. And you're going to have to emphasize the running game a little bit more. And, Ben would have spots where his greatness would come, where he can throw that deep ball. He can do what he does, but he's not there. And I don't want to see Ben just on his very last leg. That's the lasting memory you have of Ben Roethlisberger just being being a guy who throws 4 interceptions per game.
Right.
You don't want to see that. So.
All right. I'm going to quick fire a couple names at you, and you just tell me whether they're going to stay or go. Let's start with the one that in my book is, if you've watched Draft Day, it's the one that's this guy no matter what, Bud Dupree.
Man, you want to keep the Bud if you can, because, just like the quarterback position, the outside linebacker position, the rush defensive end is a very important position, even though I do have a beef with how people look at sacks and how people look at tackles for loss. Essentially, they are the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's because you're getting to the quarterback. that's why the value is a little bit more when a guy gets a bunch of sacks. And, I look at Greg Lloyd. I'm like, man, I don't know if anybody got any more tackles for loss than that guy. Those are big plays. But they look at his sacks. I'm like, man, the guy got a lot of sacks, but he made a lot of big plays in the backfield. So, but I think Bud Dupree, you try to keep him.
Okay. And I agree with you. I think they got to do whatever they can to keep that tandem of Bud and TJ together as long as they can, because I think it becomes difficult for any offense to keep a handle on.
Yeah.
James Conner.
Ooh. I just love his grit and what he's been through and the way he fights. But I really feel that I think you can let Conner go. I think that you can find guys on the waiver wire that would bring the same value that Conner brings. I love the kid. I love his grit. And in any other situation, we'd love to have him on the team because he's going to run hard for you. He's going to do the very best he can. But I think if you're looking at what he brings to the table, then I think you can let somebody like Conner go.
Juju.
I think you keep Juju. People are saying he's not a number one. I get that, but Juju's a really good player.
I agree.
Is. Yeah, he's a good player, and you don't want him to go somewhere else where he can really shine. I just think that maybe he's not the number one guy.
I think Juju makes his most impact coming out of the slot because he's so hard to cover and he's tough. Reminds me of Hines Ward, in that mold.
I don't think you give up on Juju just yet. I think you let him stay there, and maybe you put him in another role. Maybe you find ways to get him the ball, because when he does get the ball, he's pretty dynamic. But sometimes you're not always a number one guy, and that's okay. Doesn't mean you're not a good player. He's a very good player. And people who saying he's not a good player, they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
But as far as your number one, what a true number one is. Maybe he's not that guy, but he's definitely a 1B guy. And he can make some plays. So I say you keep him.
The question is, can you keep both him and Bud Dupree? Since they're both essentially free agents at the end, as we go into this next season, Juju's done with his rookie contract. There's no extension because he was a second-round pick. And Mama Juju came out and said, my boy needs to get paid. So the question is, can they keep him?
I mean, I don't know if they can keep him or not. I don't know how this all work out. But if you telling me who do you choose, I think you choose Bud Dupree, because on a defense like the 3-4 defense, you need those two outside linebackers who can rush the passer. It makes a difference. And now teams can't slide to one side or the other. They can't double team a guy because they have to contend with the other guy. So, I mean, if you say make that choice, I think the choice is clear. It's Bud Dupree. Hey, Juju, go make your money somewhere else. You convince another team that you're a number one guy. You're a team that you're a guy who deserves to get highly paid. All right, take the offer we're going to give you.
I'm with you there 100%. I think I would love to keep them both. I'd even like to keep James Conner if you can keep him for a real minimal deal that lets you highlight another back and keep him as a cog and a piece of the puzzle. But if it's going to too much money,
that's what I said. He's a more of a number two back than your number one back.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, you see it. I mean, this is a lot of times it's pretty simple. If you really trust what you're seeing. See, we get clouded with other people's opinion, and we're not critical thinkers of our own. And we're not. We're either we favor something. You know what I'm saying? Or we have a side, but when you can really be objective and look at it, you understand that Conner is a really good player. He's just in the NFL, they're dudes. They're the great ones. then there's some guys underneath that, and then there's some guys underneath that. And he's underneath that second tier. And I think if you're honest with yourself, that's what you see.
Yep, I don't disagree. And his inability to stay healthy also contributes to that. Can't hurt.
I mean, he's a
play. You can't play. Yeah.
He's a absolutely kid, and what he's done with the cancer. I mean, that you take the hats off on that. Now that takes a lot of heart and soul. And he's a guy you would love to have on your team, but is he the guy? I don't think he's
right. Yeah, I think he's a great team guy. I think I love James Conner. I mean, I love, as you said, I love the grit. I love the heart. I love the will that he has. But as they say, it's a business, and at some point you got to make business decisions, and it's a tough one when it comes to that. My heart says I'd love to keep him and have him around, but only if it fits. Yeah, and that's the way it goes. So
that's just how it is, my man. It's just how it works.
Well, Levon, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. It's been an absolute pleasure and a thrill for me. As I say, I love smart people, and clearly you are a smart person. And
that's a compliment.
If it's your chance right now, I guess, to let people know if they want to follow you, if you're out there on the social networking areas and the Twitterverse and all that, and you want to kind of shoe yourself out there for that, it's your moment. Tell people what you're doing, what you want them to know.
Yeah, well, I'm with the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame, and we have a problem in South Carolina where our kids are ranked 43rd in college and career readiness. So our program and what we do is we try to educate, empower, and encourage our students to be better. And what we're trying to do is we try to highlight the programs that in South Carolina that can help our students out. And we have a campaign that's simply called Top 10 in 2030. That means we're shooting to be in the top 10 in the nation as far as college and career readiness is concerned. And so if you want to help us out, you could be a volunteer, you can be part of our membership, you can be a donor, or you can be a sponsor. So that's a part of the South Carolina Football Hall of Fame. I do different podcasts. I do a podcast with the Inside Football Hall of Fame. I do a podcast with Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland. And then I do some other podcasts. But if you really want to reach me, I'm on Facebook. Twitter, I'm Levon_Kirkland 44. So if you want to reach me that way, you can. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So there's multiple ways that you can get in touch with me. I am one of these guys that will tell you happy birthday. That's kind of guy. I'm down to earth like that. So if you ever want to talk to me, you can always talk to me. I've always been that way. So I don't see myself being any different. But Brian, I just like to thank you for having me on your show, man. I dig your studio, man cave, whatever you call it, man. It's cool, man. It really is.
Yeah. It's my what do they call it? Bat cave. It's my Steelers bat cave.
Every man needs a dark place to go.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. This is mine. So again, appreciate it. As for me, everybody, you can find me out there on the Twitterverse at Cannons Don't Thun. And if you want to follow me on Facebook, you'll regret it, but you can. I guess that's going to wrap it up for us. Until the next time, we'll see you on the other side of the big game and talk about how that went. Maybe Joe and I will get back together again for that. So in the meantime, I just want to say again, thank you to our special guest, Levon Kirkland. And for the rest of you, the way I like to leave it, it's chaos out there, so be kind.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.